Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the programme for entrepreneurs, SMEs and also business owners. Now, on today's show, we're going to be taking the fear and dread out of sales for small businesses and helping you to generate sales by changing the way that you think. Our guest on today's show is Lee Ashton. She's the author of I Sell. She's a speaker, trainer and coach, and also the co-founder of Sasudi.com. Lee, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the programme today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're really excited because you touch on a number of things that I have an absolute passion, a real interest in. And we'll get onto that a little bit later on, kind of a bit of a tease there. But predominantly it's all about changing the way we think about sales. Now, we do a lot of programs about sales. Last week's program, we looked at different sales techniques from a particular sales coach. But you've been in the selling environment for a long, long time, haven't you?
I have. I've been in sales for 30 years. I can't think of doing anything else. I absolutely love it. And for the last 20 years, I've been helping small business owners and big corporate sales teams to think differently about selling so that they can enjoy it as much as I do. Because what I learned very quickly is that actually not everybody loves it quite the same way as me.
When you walk into a large corporate, a large organisation, are you hearing the same issues and the same problems, albeit maybe described in a different way, but are you hearing the same things over and over again, or is every corporate, every sales team, do they have their own individual and unique issues and problems?
Generally, it is the same. The old adage of hate picking up the phone is as much a fear for the corporate salesperson as it is for the small business owners. And they might use different wording, but generally it's all about fear and avoidance of things that they don't like doing. And
what do you do then? Do you actually go through a process? Do you go through a series of steps to actually, are you changing the way they perceive what they're doing, or is this too much detail too quickly?
Well, I guess what I do is I get them to look at it from a different perspective. So I don't exactly give them a process. What I do is I share the way that they could change. So I kind of think I shine the light on an area that they kind of are avoiding and going, no, I don't want to look at that. And I say, well, actually, how about if I shone the light from this direction? How would it look differently there? And then they kind of think, oh, I haven't thought about it like that before. And then suddenly they start to feel more comfortable and at ease. So I guess my job is to make things easy for people so that they can embrace sales in a different way. In fact, to be more of themselves. One of the things I say is stop selling and just be yourself, be really interested in helping the other person. The more natural you are, the more rapport you get. The more rapport you get, the easier it is actually to elicit what that other person really, really wants, and then it's easier to get the sale.
Do you think we dress it up with problems? Do we make it, in our mind's eye, a little bit tougher than actually it really is?
Oh, absolutely. It's like any fear. It's like false evidence appearing real. It's like any fear that anyone has about anything, not just sales, they will see it as far, far worse than it actually is. And that's how we work as people. If we're unsure or not very confident about something, or we don't do it enough to really exercise that muscle, then it is unknown. You are stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit. And when you do that, you actually will always have some challenges.
It's interesting because when you came in, we've been talking about what we're going to talk about today on the programme. And a lot of the time when we talk to people who talk about sales, they're going on about process all the time. And while you said that process is important,
Yes.
what seems to come over from what you say is about perspective of what you're doing as opposed to the process that you're going through to do it. It's approaching it in a slightly different roundabout way.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You see, it doesn't matter how good the process is. So if there's like a sequence of events or sequence of steps from here to here, that process could be outstanding and it could absolutely get you what you want at the end of it. But if at the beginning of the process you think, I don't want to do that process, that's not me,
Yes.
then you won't do it. And if you even attempt to do it half-heartedly, what will happen is that you do it in a mediocre way because there's a bit of you resisting. You don't really want to do that.
Those voices in your head
Yeah,
again.
those voices in your head. And so you get to the end, you go, I knew it wouldn't work, simply because you were thinking that you create that self-fulfilling prophecy. This isn't going to
What we'll do, we'll look at some of the processes that you go through, and I know as well that there is a training site that you're working on as well, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. What about Lee herself? Tell us a little bit about you. 20 years you say you've been in sales. How did you get into sales? And was it an epiphany moment when you went, you know what, I actually quite like this environment because I'm doing it slightly different? What happened?
Well, it was 30 years ago. I was in a job that I really was bored with. I was in banking. I'm really sorry to any bankers out there. And it just...
Bored. Remember the word, she was bored, okay? Yes, you were saying, yes.
And so I was looking for a job and someone suggested, instead of looking for another banking job, I should try sales because they thought I'd be really good at
So
it.
is this the classic, you fell into sales?
I absolutely did. I decided to go for one interview, and if I got the job, it would be evidence for me that that was my path at this moment. And I went for the interview, got the job, and even though I found this cold calling thing quite difficult, I absolutely loved it. You know, I was getting paid to talk with people all day long, and it was an epiphany. It was like, wow, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I felt like I was this crusader going around helping people to solve whatever problem that they had.
But is that because of where you were coming from? I mean, there must have been people sitting around you. You're new to sales. People would have been trying to teach you sales technique and different ways to do the selling. There would have been people that have been doing it for a couple of years around you, I would imagine. Were you not a fish out of water, or were you a square peg in a round hole, so that you were different from the others?
I never ever felt that. So I always felt that I am a prolific learner. So when I meet people, I'm always thinking, you know, oh wow, now that's really interesting. How could I use that? You know, that's just the way that I think naturally, and I'm very fortunate in the ability to do that. So they placed me with really experienced salespeople, and I learned, I observed, I learned, figured out what would work for me, and also I am a bit of a risk taker. So I'm quite good at trying things out, even if I'm not 100% sure. And it seemed to work.
Some people would call that. Not that I'm trying to judge or anything from where I'm sitting, but so are you but is that something that you think is an important characteristic of somebody that goes into sales? Controlled recklessness, so that you do take a risk taker.
I don't think you need to be a risk taker, but you do need to be able to step outside your comfort zone. But I think all humans have to do that, not just in sales. We have to do it every day, otherwise we would never progress. So if you watch a baby, they're treading outside their comfort zone every second of every day because they've never done anything. And we need to carry on doing that, not to the level maybe that we were babies, but there is so much to learn out there. There is so much that would help you change the way you do things, it's vital.
It's interesting, the baby scenario. As a baby, you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, but you don't understand, likewise, the consequences of doing so.
Yes.
Is that, as we get older, we start to realise the potential consequences of stepping outside of our comfort zone, and that's why perhaps we kind of closet ourselves a wee bit?
Yes, fear actually is based on past experience. So where we have fears or beliefs that stop us doing particular behaviours, whatever those behaviours are, the root of that is probably way, way back, pre-7 years old. So it could be something that happened at school, or something that happened when you were playing with a friend, or you were laughed at, or you got embarrassed because you fell off your bike, or you couldn't do something as well as Susie or Tom or another person, or you were criticised for doing something. So all of these experiences create these emotions in our body that actually, when we're about to do something new, it's perfectly natural to think, oh gosh, I might embarrass myself, people might laugh. Well, they might, but also you might be really great as well.
Listen, we're going to come back, we're going to talk about some of the specifics. I think what's nice about today's programme is that it isn't just purely talking about the sales process. There's a little bit of inward examination. You're kind of looking back at yourself. Maybe you're looking at your own reflection in a mirror, that salesperson that looks back at you perhaps in the morning. How do you make that reflection work a little bit more effectively? How do you get past some of those fears that you might have when it comes to picking up the phone? And there may not even be fears. It may be just the fact that it becomes the norm, and you're finding it not interesting anymore, and you're looking for something of a little bit more interest to stimulate you once again to make those sales. That's all to come on this edition of Business Connections Live. And we hope you're enjoying the show today. Great guest with us today. A bit of NLP as well. We're going to be talking about that, aren't we?
Yes.
You said not to, but I think everybody finds NLP so absolutely fascinating. And there are some people that look down their noses and go, it's a load of hokum pokum.
It's quite a controversial subject.
and that's why we're going to talk about it.
Well, I guess if people I don't normally mention it when I'm working with people, unless somebody says, oh, that's NLP, isn't it? And then I'll have a conversation, because the minute you give something a label, it puts it in a box.
Let's talk more about the box a little bit later on, that labelled box as well, for that matter. Hello there, you are watching Business Connections Live. Great to have you with us. We are live right now. Don't forget, if you have a comment or anything like that, you can use the 10-minute wonder, which is Twitter. You can contact us if you want on there. You can send a question if you wish to Lee, my guest today. BCL Business TV is our Twitter handle. If you've got a question for Lee, maybe there's something that she's already said that you'd like to have a comment on, well, look, why don't you just Twitter it right now, tweet it right now, and we'll ask the question of Lee during the course of the programme. BCL Business TV is our Twitter handle. Now, the last couple of weeks we've been talking a lot about sales. We think it is the cornerstone of any bit. You have no business, no sales, no business. There are a lot of people out there that will start it, they get completely involved, they get completely entranced in what they're actually doing, and they sometimes, for instance here, I come into our studio and we are, I suppose, primarily, we are a sales operation. That's what we do here. We sell the concept. We sell the concept of using television and video in business. That's actually what we sell. But when I walk in here, I'm surrounded by all my toys, and I could actually be very, very busy day in, day out, just playing with my toys, the cameras, the equipment, the lighting, whatever. These are my toys. They're my comfort zone. But stepping outside that comfort zone, where you start to actually get it paid for with those sales, is really important, and that's really what we're talking about today. And we also talked about it on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. We spoke to Martin Sloman from Gold Dust. I'll say it again, from Gold Dust Training. It was a great show. Martin, an interesting guest, a different aspect, a different perspective to when it came to selling. If you haven't watched the programme, I do suggest that you go to our website to watch the entire show. If you want to get a bit of a taster of it, you can watch this, because it's what happened on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Our guest on today's show is Martin Sloman from Gold Dust Sales Trading.
The one biggest mistake, well, that's a really good question, I think is not learning from whatever that failure is in that moment. It's about taking each part of the process, so taking that initial conversation that you want to have, that initial lead, and just thinking about, okay, what's the best outcome that we can create here for the customer? What's the best outcome that I can create here for me? Where a lot of salespeople go wrong is that they don't identify their target customer profile. Another thing that salespeople can be really ineffective doing is actually understanding their own value proposition. So I don't believe that there's any such thing as a natural salesperson. I think that it's learnt. I think it used to be that if you were gregarious, if you were outgoing, if you could talk, then you would be perceived to be an effective salesperson, but the polar opposite is true now. The effective salesperson is someone who they'll stay with the status quo. We need to find out what the reasons are for them to stay as they are. I think that the subservient person will have better appeal. However, they still need to have confidence to ask those bolder questions. So the subservient person will put the prospect at ease, and will take the pressure out of the sales conversation. Whereas the dominant person, unfortunately, they fall into that archetypal perception that we've got of the typical salesperson, and so therefore, the barriers come up, and the prospect feels sold to. They know what's coming next. They can almost sense the techniques being rolled out.
Yes.
All right, I'm Martin Sloman from Gold Dust Sales Training, and I'm called the Yes Man because I help people to get more agreement in their conversations, whether it be with customers or prospects. So the key takeaways that I recommend are: plan questions before you have those conversations, but don't be so rigid that you have to stick to all of those questions. Remember, it's not about us, it's about them, it's about the prospect. So always think, is the juice worth the squeeze? What's going to be the best outcome for your prospect or your customer from that conversation? And then what's going to be the best outcome for you? If you use that thought process before any interactions, it will mean that even if the previous interaction didn't go as well as you wanted it to, you're more likely to pick yourself up and start to deliver a fresh experience for that next person you're going to speak to without the residual negativity of the previous experience moving into that. And that will come across in your approach. So it's always think, is the juice worth the squeeze? Plan a few good questions, but don't be stuck to them. And to always look at it as a learning experience. So think about what you've taken from that previous call, what went well about it, and what you can use again, what you might do differently.
Really good show, actually. Martin Sloman there from Gold Dust Training. Not easy to say, actually. Put the teeth back in there. If you want to watch the entire show, do go along to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. You can see the entire show. In fact, there's over 100 hours worth of business information, advice. All sorts of shows are there, everything from social media all the way through to seed funding, how to start up a business. It's all there, everything you need to know when it comes to starting and running a successful business. It's all there at Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Our guest on today's show is Lee Ashton. She's the author of I Sell, speaker, trainer and coach, and the co-founder of Sasudi.com. It's a good book, by the way. If you do get an opportunity, the book is available. We'll give you all the details on the website as well if you want to find out where to get hold of the book. Let's just show you the cover so you'll recognise it. There it is. That's the cover of the book. I Sell, Unlock Your Winning Sales Mindset. Now, it's got Lee Ashton down there. It also got the name Brian Tracy there, who gives a recommendation for the book as well. It's a real insight into what you should be doing when it comes to maybe getting it clear in your head how you should be going about selling. Lee, we were talking a little bit about the psychology of sales, and we were also talking about sales in general. If we're being realistic, and there's no one to throw anything at us while we're sitting here, but are there a lot of pretenders to the crown, do you think, out there? Are there a lot of people that feel they're giving good advice and in fact actually haven't done it? They're just regurgitating regurgitating the words that they've read somewhere?
Well, I think that people get inspired when they learn something that they think is life-changing, so they feel that they should go out and share it with the world. And I think that unless you've lived something, you can only get to a certain depth. When you use something in your own life to make changes and you share it with the world, then I think you create a certain emotion and a depth that makes it real, which is why a lot of people go to these events and come out really excited.
Hyped.
Yeah, they're so excited, and then a week later they're back into their normal routine.
Is that because it's difficult? I'm going to use the 3 letters now.
Yes.
We're going to put a label on something, all right?
Yes.
But is that because, to a certain extent, the way we're working this out, I mean, you're a practitioner as well of NLP, but is it because that we are stuck in habits? We are very habit-forming creatures. So therefore, I remember going on a course once for better management in the office, and it was time management in the days when I was in marketing. And I remember that the course said you have 4 folders: read now, read later, the rubbish folder, and another, I think it was. And I remember coming back and talking to my PA at the time, and we said, this is the way we're going to organise it all. It went for a week, I think, and in the end, all the folders just disappeared, and it was back to the same old. In fact, I think the way my in-tray worked was too difficult to do today, easy to do today. You know, that was really the way I was actually sorting things out. But it would just drop out. We get all the enthusiasm, but how do you maintain that enthusiasm? Is it something that can be taught, or is it something that you just got to have intrinsically to be successful? It's something that some people have and some people don't.
I think the way that you make something stick long term is, first of all, you've got to want to do whatever it is. Secondly, you have to find a way that works for you to actually make that a reality in your working life. And thirdly, it depends on what's going on up here. So it doesn't matter how much you want to do something, and you can use affirmations all day long. Unless you do something different, it's not going to happen. And the way that you do something different is having the mindset around, I can do this and I will do this. And I'll give you a great example. You know, just because I have been teaching mindset for the last 20 years doesn't mean that I've got complete control of my mindset. And one of the things that I have been struggling with for years is getting up in the morning. And I have, even though I know telling myself I'm not a morning person, you know, is reinforcing this belief that I can't get up super early.
So you are actually, for fear of using a word, you are framing it in your own mind's eye, aren't you?
Yes.
You're telling yourself that's what you are.
That's right. I'm creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that I can't get up super early in the morning. And I'm reading these things in the Sunday Times, say all these entrepreneurs get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh,
You're never gonna be an
7's
entrepreneur, that's it.
But recently I set myself this challenge. To get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I create a framework that makes it possible for me to do that. I even put on Facebook, I am setting myself this 21-day challenge to get up at 6 a.m. every single morning. And you know what's incredible? I've really enjoyed getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
What time are you going to bed now?
I go to bed about 10:30. So I was going to bed between 10:30 and 11 anyway, and now I'm going to bed between 10 and 10:30. So really there hasn't been that much difference, but what has changed is the way that I think about it. and the commitment that I've made to actually making that real. And people who've known me a long time, when I told them I'd done this 21-day challenge, some of them physically laughed out loud and said, "You haven't got a hope."
Well, apart from being slovenly and staying in bed all morning, let's go back, because what you have seen is, it's interesting because you've done that to yourself.
Yeah.
But when you started in sales,
Yes.
you were promoted to a sales manager's
Yes.
role, and you thought, right, I understand what I'm doing. I like communicating with people. I see the excitement in doing that.
Yeah.
I pick the phone up. I've got something to tell them that I'm excited about and I can enthuse about.
Yeah.
And what's happening is a lot of these people that I'm talking to, while they're not friends, we are building a rapport.
Yeah.
And you thought, right, I'm a sales manager now. I'll just teach that to the rest of my team.
Yeah.
Was it a surprise to you when that didn't work? And just tell us a little bit about how you got through that bit of the career and what the lessons were that you learned, because that what the story is must be typical of many sales teams.
Oh, for sure. You know, when you're a really successful salesperson and you think you're going to like smash all of the teams in the country by sharing what you've learned, and then not being able to do that, I felt a huge sense of failure and inadequacy. And I thought, God, maybe I'm a salesperson and I can't be a sales manager, but I really wanted that. And when I shared the things that I did when I was going about my work with my team, they fell into three camps. The first camp was, Lee, that is amazing, and off they'd go and they would do these new things and improve their results. The second camp was, Lee, that's amazing, and off they would go and carry on doing what they were doing all the time and not change anything. And the third camp was, that wouldn't work for me or my people or my customers. So I became really frustrated, but also really curious. What is going on? You know, why would somebody not do something that would really help them? And that's when I started reading and listening to a whole host of cassettes, as it was back then, to find out what would cause people not to take action. And that led me down the path of psychology and various forms of learning, like accelerated learning and NLP. And when I came across NLP, I realised that it was the perfect marriage with sales. So as I was learning it, I was integrating it in my work, both as a salesperson and a sales manager. And that led me to start my business 20 years ago.
But was it what you were learning? Was it techniques, or was it an awareness of what you actually were already doing naturally?
Well, there were a whole host of techniques for sure, but you've actually made a very good point in that it is a huge amount of awareness, because there were some things that I had no awareness that I was actually doing. So when I was learning about how the mind works and how human beings operate in the world, the way that their mind impacts on their behaviour, what I learned was, oh, I didn't realise that that was a strategy and that I actually do that. So it
Because you were just doing it anyway.
Because I was doing it so naturally and so unconsciously. So that's why one of the other reasons that I couldn't teach that to my team, because I was leaving vital pieces of information out of what I was delivering to them.
The solution, which leads us on nicely to, because I do prepare occasionally, to read the first question.
Yeah.
The first question. So what do you then perceive are the real barriers to sales success? What do you think they are then? So what are the key barriers? The bits, what were the bits you missed out? What was stopping your sales team from succeeding?
I think there are two real barriers to sales success in whatever role that you do. And for me, the first is not taking responsibility for where you are. It's that
now, what does that mean?
It's that whole reasons and excuses piece. I call it the valley of reasons and excuses. It's where a person says, it's not my fault that I haven't got sales. I haven't got time, I haven't got the staff, I haven't got the money, customers want more than they used to, I can't make it work. You know, those things that cause a person to believe that it's not actually their fault. You know, customers won't pay this amount of money. And when you go into that valley, then it's like crossing your arms and saying, I can't do anything about it. So even though you go through the motions of doing sales, there's this bit that's lurking in the back of your mind. It's, you know, they probably won't pay this. You know, I haven't got enough money to do a marketing campaign. You know, I really need to be doing this or I'm going to lose my customers. I haven't got time for sales.
So it is nearly the half empty. Listen, we'll continue more with the half empty and the second part of where it goes wrong in just a few moments' time. My guest on today's show is Lee Ashton. She's the author of I Sell. She's a speaker, trainer and a coach, and also the co-founder of Sasudi.com. Find out more about that in just a few moments' time, right here on this edition of Business Connections Live. We do hope you've enjoyed today's programme. So, you're probably sitting there and you're probably completely engrossed. And look, did you notice what I just did then? That was a little bit of a tease, just to make you watch a little longer. So we're going to tell you in just a few moments' time what the second thing is, isn't it? It's the second thing. So we've done the first. So in a moment we're going to tell you the second thing that you need to consider when it comes to actually breaking down those barriers and looking at how you do achieve sales success. By the way, if you are sitting there right now and you think, you know, I've really got to watch this, just imagine just how engaging that is. Are you a business that is selling out newsletters at the moment? Do you collect people's names and then you send out an email to them to confirm that they're now on your mailing list? You may be using something like Infusionsoft or another CRM package. Are you doing that at the moment? And then what you do is you'll bombard them. You're going to absolutely bombard them. You're going to send them out email after email after email. Maybe sending out newsletters on a monthly basis. Wouldn't it be better if, as opposed to sending out something that all the time is making people read, that you engage them a little bit more and you send them out your own program? And I'm not talking just about a talking head video like this one. How many do you see on YouTube that look just like this? A head, a background, talking straight down the camera. Say you were to send them out your own specific branded TV program. How much more engaging could that be? We call it Your Brand TV. Still sending out conventional newsletters to customers?
Do you just want a more engaging way to talk to your customers and employees?
Hello, I'm Steve Hyland.
And I'm Linda Bazant of Business Connections Live.
Your Brand TV is a completely branded television show that can be streamed live or delivered on demand to your niche audience. Be the first in your market to capitalise on the online media gold rush that is using online video to effectively deliver news, information and education to key personnel and clients.
Video attracts 2 to 3 times as many monthly visitors. It doubles their time spent on your site and has a 150% increase in organic traffic from search engines. Large networking organisations are already utilising the power of Your Brand TV to market, promote and publicise to their members and groups across the UK.
Your programme will be branded with your corporate colours and logos in your own broadcast quality network studio.
You can choose the format. It can be news or magazine or interview in its look and feel.
You can have live guests on your show or you can Skype them in.
You can stream the show live or on demand, so it's available for catch-up.
This is a chance to deliver your message in a new exciting format that will allow your business to cut through the noise and stand out from the crowd and engage your workforce and customers. This is Your Brand TV.
To get more information on this fabulous opportunity to bring to life your corporate communications, contact us today at Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.
It's called Your Brand TV. If you'd like to have a program that's all about your brand, then do please get in touch with us. In fact, get in touch with us. And if you're enjoying today's program and you're watching this on YouTube, well, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We are just shy. If you're depending on when you're watching this program, we're recording it live on Monday, the 16th of November, 2015. We're just shy of our 1,000th subscriber to the channel. And remember, the thing that's interesting about these programs, they're not mass audience appeal. When we set out to do these particular shows, we didn't say, right, we want millions of people. We'd love millions of people to watch, but we're not saying we want millions of people to watch. That's not the prime incentive behind the program. What we want is, we want business owners like you to watch. Somebody that cares about their business, somebody who is hungry for knowledge, somebody that is hungry for information to make their business more successful, to make it different, to differentiate themselves from the other lot that are out there, for you to be that market leader. That's why we make the programs. If only 4 people watched the program, and they were, should we say Alan Sugar, the Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, why would you want to watch it? Or one other big entrepreneur. If those 4, then it would be worth producing the program. This is all about giving you the information that you need to succeed in your business. Now, if you want something like Your Brand TV, you can contact us here at the studio. Talk to myself, Steve Hyland, or to Linda Besant. Our email address is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. If you want, you can give us a call. We don't mind. Just pick the phone up and ring us on 01784 256 777. You can do that right now if you want. Our phones are always manned. And if you want to follow us on Twitter to find out what's going through our psyche, through our mind's eye at any given moment, we don't bombard you with tweets, but we are we are there on BCL Business TV, telling you what's coming along, what programs are there. If you've got a great piece of information and we think it's great too, then we'll retweet it, we'll favour it, we'll do all of that. It's part of our business community, and that's what Business Connections Live is all about. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Lee Ashton. She's the author of I Sell, speaker, trainer and coach, and also the co-founder of Sasudi.com. If you are looking for maybe a more realistic, different approach to appreciating what your sales is all about, then maybe Lee has got some of the answers for you. She's not someone who's just read a few self-help books and then regurgitates the content. What Lee has done is, Lee comes from a proper sales background. She's been doing it, she won't thank me for saying this, for over 30 years. She doesn't look it. She now gets up very early because she's changed her mindset. We were saying a moment ago, I love that. I get up early. Because we had Kate Lester on the program a couple of weeks back, and she gets up at 4:30.
I know.
So 6 o'clock, middle of the morning.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. We were talking about the real barriers to sales success and what they are. You mentioned one.
Yes.
What's the second one?
The second is what you believe about yourself. Now, all people have beliefs about themselves that are positive and empowering. The things that we know we are good at, that we enjoy doing, we'll have beliefs around that say, yeah, we're really good at that. It's those other beliefs, like, I can't do that. So I'm not a salesperson.
Is this half full, or half empty? Is it nearly that?
No, it's not quite that. That's a different kind of concept. That's more around half full and half empty, is around, do you move towards what you want, or do you move away from what you don't want? And the inner beliefs that get in the way, the limiting or negative beliefs, are more about you as an individual, and they can be in any context. So I can't do something. And when I am working with small business owners, one of the things that they tell me is, I'm not a salesperson. I started my business to do X because I'm really good at X. But I'm not a salesperson. And it's a real shame that in this country we think sales is something that's bad and that we resist it. And there are some really good examples of why we resist it. You only have to walk into one of those large electrical stores and your feet haven't even left the front mat and someone's on you asking you if they can help you. So it's about, how can you realise that we are all salespeople. You know, in the UK, 8 out of 10 people are employed in a sales job that isn't necessarily direct sales. So, for example, a teacher is in a sales job. She is selling this information to the children in her class, he or she. And the children either buy it or they don't. Even a priest is in a sales job. When they're up there on Sunday preaching their sermon, they are selling. Any job, customer service is all about selling. Any job that influences the decision of another person is a selling job. It may not be direct sales of the type that I've been engaged in the last 30 years, but nonetheless it is. And even when all of the viewers today will know that when they have a conversation with someone and they give an opinion, they don't know whether the other person is going to agree with that opinion or not. That's a sales conversation. And when the other person says, actually, I don't agree with you, and then they give their perspective, and then there's this debate all around the subject, then that's negotiation. But when you put the sales label on it, somehow it becomes something distasteful or a dirty word. And actually, I'd like to say that sales for me is like the strongest act of love and caring for the other person. You are trying to resolve a problem for them, and the only way you can do that is by having that conversation and really caring about them.
So, that's the perception. How do you change somebody's approach and attitude to it then? How do you break down those barriers? How do you make them feel more positive about the profession that they're in, about doing sales? I must admit, I've never heard the teacher example, and you're dead right. Everybody is selling all of the time. And that applies in friendships and things like that as well. I would imagine you are constantly influencing somebody else, aren't you?
Yeah.
So how do you bring that, what is natural, how do you bring that to a direct sales role?
Well, the way that you do that is by changing the way that you think about it. So rather than thinking that you are going to extract money from someone and they're going to think badly of you, it's about how can I help that person? And you know, there's a concept that I talk about where this is a mistake that a lot of people make, and this isn't just business owners, this happens in the big corporates too. They meet with someone who could be a potential buyer for their product or services, and then they do this. This is what we do. We do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, and we do this. So they tell the other person about the features and benefits of their service or product. And what's interesting about that, I call that weing all over the place. You see it? So if you use we or I or your company name, you're weing all over the place, and it's telling, selling. And in the head of the other person, they're going tick, cross, tick, cross, tick, cross. Does it resonate with me? Am I interested? Do I even care about what they've just said? So the other person is evaluating it. Now, when that happens, it makes it super, super hard to get into rapport. It makes it super hard to close a sale because you are starting on the back foot. They've already got their barriers up. It's like, oh God, here we go again. It's like the boring person at the party. You ask them a question and they talk about themselves the whole time, and you're waiting for them to draw breath so that you can say, oh, I'm just going to go and get another drink. So this is what
classic
happens.
networking.
This
really,
is classic networking, yeah. So you're doing this weeing, and really the best thing you can do is go to where they are and say, tell me about you. What problems do you have in the area of sales? And this is for me, but whatever your business is, even if you're a cake maker, you know, what do you do when you've got a big celebration? You know, how do you create the cake of your dreams? Or whatever you do, it doesn't matter. You ask questions that relate to that person. But generally they're along the lines of, what problems do you have? What is your objective when? and you ask what I call open and you questions. Tell me about you. And when you found out about that person, then you can say, you know, I can help you or I can't.
There's going to be people that won't understand what an open question is. Well, just explain that to me.
Okay, an open question is a question that someone has to answer with dialogue. So what, who, when, where and how are great words to start an open question.
They are also classic journalistic words as well. The who, what, where, when and why.
No, not why.
Not why. Not
how.
why. How.
Now that's really interesting you said that. I'm so glad that you did, because so many people make that mistake. And when I first started in sales, I used to ask why questions all the time. And it's a really dangerous thing, because when you ask somebody a why question, their defences go up immediately, because you are asking for justification of what they've just said. And when that happens, there's something that's triggered in the brain called the limbic system, and it makes them really anxious. And that's when they will just say whatever is the first thing that pops into their head that is plausible and will pacify you. So, you know, why did you do that? Well, my manager told me to do it. Or, oh, well, I didn't have enough money to do X. Or so it's not the real reason. So if you want to know the real reason for something, you ask what questions. What made you think that was this, or what caused you to do that, or what made you think that supplier was a better choice for you? What made you think that we were less than perfect for you? When you ask what questions, it gives you criteria, and then it's not about the person, it's about something external for them, and that makes it so much easier for them to reply.
Do you know you've got to be careful tonally though, haven't you?
Yes.
Because
you have
a what and a why, depending on the tone used in your voice, can sound the same.
Yeah. It's
what
not.
do you want to do like that for?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do like that? You've got to be very careful with the what, haven't you?
Yeah. In rapport.
In rapport. Yeah.
What questions in rapport?
Very good. You know, I mean, we've still got how to change the way you approach your customers, your new customers. But that's what we're going to talk about in just a few moments' time. But I would imagine a lot of what you said so far is really just getting yourself into the zone, isn't it? The communication zone. Do you think we communicate as well as we think we do, in general?
I think we communicate with ourselves, because that's what human beings do. We communicate with the outside world in a way that is right for us and our filters. So when we communicate with a new person that we don't know, a prospective customer, for example, we will be talking in a way that we think this is the best way to communicate this message that I'm trying to get across. And to some degree we have to do that, but we have to test, is it hitting the spot or not? And when we do that, what I call weeing all over the place, that's when you're focusing on you and how you say stuff. So I think I should say this in a certain way, for example, to get that message across. You're focusing on you and your performance, if you like. Now, when you do that, it stops you actually being with the other person that you're communicating with, because you're always thinking about, what do I need to say next? How do I need to say that? Instead of just being with the other person. So for me, it's really about being so with them that you lose track of your own thinking, and you are so present with them and listening to everything they say that it automatically gives you the next question, because it relates to what they have just answered.
We'll find out more about that in just a few moments' time, right here on Business Connections Live. Really fascinating. I mean, just the inward looking, the way that you're looking into the way you communicate. We all have the voices in our head, don't we?
All of us.
All
yes,
of us.
Yes,
Thank God for that. Thank you for agreeing, because for a moment I thought I was the only one.
No.
I remember but there is always this worry, isn't there?
Yeah.
That there is that absolute privacy of the voice in your head.
Yeah.
And there are probably things that you say to yourself that you wouldn't say to anybody and have never said to anybody, that is absolutely locked up and is so secret. And of course, that inner voice, I suppose, is the voice that is taking care of your external voice, isn't it?
That everything that goes on the inside, you reflect it outwardly, even if your words don't reflect it.
Good, I love this. Great. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest today is Lee Ashton, author of I Self, a speaker, trainer and coach, and also the co-founder of Sasudi.com. We are in the last segment of the show, and we are approaching very quickly the nearing the end. In fact, we'll be asked for some takeaways, and I feel that we haven't covered everything that we set out to do. We've kind of touched on how to change the way that we approach customers. Let's talk a little bit about that then. We've got the inner voice. We've got all that going on in ourselves. We've got the way that we're communicating. What is the next step? How do we re-anchor ourselves? How do we put ourselves in a different place to make certain that we enjoy the selling now and that we fulfill and we get more out of it?
For me, it's that trigger thought that starts everything. And whenever people are embarking on anything that they don't embrace fully with all of their being, there'll be some kind of feeling in their body. And whenever you feel any negative feelings at all, that's a time to just stop and just notice that negative feeling and what it is for you. And it could be anxiety, it could be fear, it could be just that just block. And when you feel that negative feeling, ask yourself what the thought is that triggers that. And people actually don't always know, because it's so unconscious, it's so super fast that actually they lose it altogether.
When you describe that to a corporate client or to a large sales team, do you get people looking at you going, she's gone stark raving, barking mad now? Because all of us, you're selling a concept, aren't you? You're making them stop and you're making them look internally about the way they are approaching a particular issue or a particular process that they're going through. Do you get resistance to that when you sometimes describe the emotions and the feelings to them?
My job is to create an environment where there is no resistance. So, and the way that I deliver that is delivered in a way that doesn't create resistance. So I don't, but just for the benefit of the viewers, then the reason that there is no resistance is because I ask people to tap into their own, think about something you really don't like doing that you know you're not very good at. What feeling comes up for you? And then they shout out. And I think that corporates actually are embracing the need for mindset training more now than ever before. When I started my business 20 years ago, people didn't ring up and say, oh, Lee, can you come in and do some mindset training? They said, can you come in and do sales training? And my version of sales training was much more long lasting because it was mindset training. You know, when I go in and do training, because you change the way somebody thinks, they don't need subsequent training unless they want to change something else. But now the phone is ringing and they're saying, Lee, we want mindset training, because it's happening everywhere. You only have to look in the world of sport, where sports people are changing their results because they've taken on a psychology coach instead of someone who just focuses on physical coaching.
So are we now bordering into the world then of the Tony Robbins kind of approach, Tony Robbins and even still the Paul McKenna kind of approach, where it is that kind of anchoring. It's nearly, I hesitate using the hypnosis, but the psychological approach to putting yourself in the right place to sell. It's interesting because what we've talked about, we were talking about sales, And really what we're talking about is putting yourself in the mindset to
Yeah.
achieve sales.
Yeah.
That's really what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's the crucial bit that is missing for so many people. They actually know what they should be doing, they're just not doing it. You know, there's so much information out there that we could learn to do anything we wanted. The only barrier is our thinking to it. And when you mentioned Tony Robbins, and I mean, I love Tony Robbins. He really is my kind of presenter, that real high energy, but he's not for everybody. You know, if you're not in that ilk of personality, like hugely extrovert, hugely outgoing, really high energy, that doesn't mean that you can't have a great mindset. It's about doing it in a way that's right for you, and that's where we're getting to now. I think we're learning so much more about the mind, that actually all we're doing is learning what made great people really great, because we understand psychology so much more, which means we can all copy that, we can all model that, we could do anything we want to.
But this is the whole idea, isn't it, behind what they preach is the wrong words, but what the examples they use. Tony Robbins, the book, if you're not familiar with the book, it's The Power Within. You're dead right. For some people, it's not a good read. For some people, it's a fascinating read. Very, very highly repetitive is what I felt, but talking about the same thing over and over again. But I think the most interesting thing that comes out of anything like this is, why reinvent the wheel all the time, isn't it? What he's saying is, if you can see someone who is doing it in a particular way that is successful, emulate what they do and replicate it. And then by replicating it, you will enjoy the same success.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But it's not just about replicating the actions, because otherwise what you're doing is mimicking actions without purpose and without the outcome. So when I pick up the phone, for example, to speak to somebody new, I'm not thinking, oh God, I'm going to convince this person that they really need me. I'm thinking, oh, this could be this is another new adventure. I have no idea what's going to be said on the phone. But what is absolutely crucial that everyone needs to remember is that when you are talking about something you are good at, you probably do know more about it than they do. They're not going to ask you a question that you can't answer. And even if they did, it would be okay to say, that's a really great question. I've never thought about that before. Let me have a think about it and I'll come back to you this afternoon.
Listen, we're getting very deep all of a sudden, and I really enjoyed it. It's been nice because I knew it would kind of go that way. My inner self was telling me this. Listen,
that inner voice again.
That inner voice, both of them. What we always ask our guests to do is we ask them to look straight down one of our cameras and to give the takeaways from the show, the key things that will make somebody think differently, make them, some of the tools that they need. So if you don't mind doing that, it'd be great. If straight down camera number one, I'll close the lid of my laptop, but straight down camera number one, who you are and where you're from. And as long as you want, the airwaves are all yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lee Ashton, an author, speaker, trainer and coach, and I help people sell more effectively. I help them to change the way that they think so that they feel a different engagement with sales. So if you are struggling with sales in any way, if you find sales challenging, if you never seem to get it right, the first place to start is up here. I'm guessing that you probably know lots of the things that you should or could be doing and are just not doing them, and it's just about stepping outside your comfort zone. So the takeaways today really is to focus on the way that you feel about something and change that feeling to something more positive by changing the trigger thought that you think about it. I want you to know that you have to just take a few small steps outside your comfort zone in order to make a change, because if you carry on doing what you're doing and it's not working, nothing is going to change, no matter how brilliantly you get at what you're doing. And so when you think about taking that small step outside your comfort zone, that can be very scary. And a lot of people refer to that area outside your comfort zone as your terror zone. Well, actually, I'm going to let you into a secret. In between the comfort zone and the terror zone is a place called the learning zone. And in that zone, you are allowed to make as many mistakes as you like. You can get it wrong, you can fall over and scuff your knees, and it won't matter, because this is the place where you learn to do stuff. You learn to perfect it in a way that's right for you. You learn to develop your tools and techniques in a way that works perfectly for your personality. So step into that learning zone and practice so that you can make it so work for you. And remember, you haven't got to be anyone else but yourself. There's something that I say to all the people that come on my trainings or read my books. It's about being more of who you are. Never compare yourself to others, only to the you of yesterday. So if you have moved just a fraction closer to your goals each and every day, you're going in the right direction. And if there's anything that you need to support you, then find what it is. It might just be a buddy, it might be regular personal development. Do something every day. Be more of you.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Really good. If you had to do a 15-second water cooler pitch on Sasudi, it really is, it encapsulates everything you've talked about there, but in an online training course, isn't it?
Well, Sasudi is an online resource for small business owners who don't really like selling, and it definitely does have e-learning on it, but there are lots of other things. They can process all their sales activities on it, they can create their goals, put in targets, and we will keep them on track. We will hold their hand and take them from where they are now, which is possibly fear and dread, to where they want to be, which is comfortable and easy and generating more sales.
Lee Ashton, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program today. Thank you very much indeed
I've
for
had a
coming
blast.
in. It's been great, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
I really, really have. Thank you.
Well, a great show, no two ways about it. Hope you've enjoyed today's show and you've got something out of it as well, for that matter. Well, Business Connections Live, we're going to be back again next week at noon on a Monday, and we've got some great shows lined up between now and Christmas. Let me remind you of what's coming up. Putting the glasses on, let me remind what's coming up. Next week's show, we have James White, CEO of InTouch CRM, talking about how fully integrated sales and marketing integration can save you time and money. If you're not familiar with autoresponders, if you're not familiar with the likes of Infusionsoft and systems like that, CRM systems, customer relationship managers, it's a great way to automate some of the more domain, some of the more easier, straightforward, sequence tasks that you need to be doing in your business. CRM is a great system. InTouch CRM is a great system. James White is going to talk us through exactly what InTouch CRM can do for your business, and that'll be on next week's edition of the programme. Future programmes to look forward to in November. Got Steve Bridger, author of the book Transform Your Communication Skills. There's a whole chapter from us in there in that particular book. The book's going to be published on the 28th of November, and it is available to pre-order on Amazon right now. You'll find the links below this particular programme, depending where you're watching. If you're watching on the website, they'll be down there. If you're watching on YouTube, I think you'll have to come to our proper website, businessconnectionslive.com. In December, we've got Steve the Barman from 4 Networking, advising you on how to entertain your clients in the festive season. That would be really good, actually. We'll all be drunk. Helena Panzerini for her new book, Funding Your Business for Dummies. That's going to be published on the 11th of December. If you are looking at funding, we've got other programs on seed funding and how to go about funding your business, but this will be a real insight. Helena's background is banking and also business funding, and we're talking about millions of pounds worth of money she's found for businesses. She's just written a new book. It is available at the 11th of December. She's an old buddy of ours here here at Business Connections Live. That'd be a great show. If you are at that stage in your business's growth and you are beginning to be looking for funding, I mean, some people can do it like that. You were saying earlier on, weren't you, about funding? It seems it is harder here in the UK than it is in, shall we say, in America to raise that funding still.
It is absolutely. When we were looking for funding for Sasudi, even though we had an established business of 20 years and we were creating a platform which really was the intellectual property we'd created in the sales consultancy, it was a real, well, it's a nightmare.
May I ask how much you raised, or you can tell me my own business?
No, we were looking for $250,000 to create the platform, but you can't get money for an idea in the UK. It's all about come back when you've got it built, come back when you've got customers, come back when you've got traction. So if that show is going to help people get access to funding, then that would be phenomenal.
Where did you get it from in the end?
A friend.
Really? Can I meet your friend? £250,000? Aye, thank you very much indeed. I don't know. If they've got any cases to carry, I could do that. That's fantastic. Did you try seed funding? Did you crowdfunding?
We worked tirelessly for a year speaking to different investors, and everybody loved the idea of Sasudi. Every investor said this is absolutely essential. There's nothing out there like this for small business, and go away and come back when you've built it.
Were you asking for enough?
We were.
On reflection, do you think you should have asked for $500,000?
No, I think initially we didn't need that. The sales consultancy funded a lot of the build, so we were able to build it, but we knew that we'd need so much more for the launch.
Very interesting now, and I think a lot of businesses, I mean, this is another programme in its own right, isn't it? The whole concept of coming along, and it's at what point does something become valued? What point does it gain value? That voice inside of our heads in here is saying this is worth so much, because you can see the dream, you can see the vision. But at what point does that actually materialise and become hard, solid cash? And that is a problem that a lot of businesses, maybe you're going through exactly the same. If you've got a question for Helene, then get on Twitter or send us an email at studio@businessconnectionslive.com, and then we can find out more about that. That's just some of the programs that are coming up. Monday 21st December, join us for our Christmas party, where all your favourite guests from the past 100 plus programs. There's a lot of assets out there. They're going to be, not all of them, well, actually everyone we've asked has said they're coming, so there could be 100 plus people, 100 plus guests here, and we're going to be asking them for their advice and tips for 2016. And don't forget, if you'd like to advertise, if you'd like to be a sponsor of the programme, then get in touch with us once again. And if you have any comments, if you've liked the show, if you've enjoyed the show, if you found it useful, then on YouTube give us a thumbs up. Don't forget, you can download it as well on iTunes. You can see it on Vimeo. We're all over the place. So we look forward to doing it all again next week. Time to roll the credits. I think it's time to say goodbye and to wrap up our bags and get out of here. Listen, thank you very much indeed for watching us today. Hope you've enjoyed today's show. It's been an absolute blast. Lee Ashton's been my guest. Read the book I Sell, and don't forget, do check out the studio. Till next Monday at midday. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.